Next up, we have to confront the grave, disturbing, and dark reality of infinite loops. They're real, and they will cause you infinite pain and suffering. Now, they're not that bad, but they are frustrating, and there's something you should know about. So let's talk about them. An infinite loop is basically what it sounds like. It's a loop that does not stop. It runs, technically it doesn't run forever, it doesn't run ad infinitum, because your browser and JavaScript are going to run out of memory, and things are going to come to a crippling, crushing halt, but they will run on and on and on and on and push your machine to a place it does not want to go. Sometimes it will just cause your browser window to just lock up entirely. I've had it where my Chrome my Chrome browser has just force quit unexpectedly. These days, the tools have gotten a bit better so you can halt them. But yeah, infinite loops are not good. You're basically using up all the memory that JavaScript has for you because your loop just never stops. So the important thing to keep in mind when you're writing any loop is always pay attention to how is this loop going to stop? And is this correct? Am I actually going to hit this stopping point at some point? So here's an example. We start with I at 20. This loop runs as long as I is greater than or equal to 0, and we add 1 each time through. Well, that's going to be a huge problem because we're starting at 20, we're adding 1, so we're going to be 20, 21, 22, 23. And this loop just runs as long as I is greater than or equal to 0. Well, it starts out greater than 0, and it's only getting further away from 0. We're adding 1 each time. So this is never going to be false, this condition. And our loop will just run and run and run. So make sure when you're writing your for loops that you stop for a moment, you think about it. Is this condition going to be false? If so, eventually it might be one iteration away. It might be 1,000 iterations. It's fine to loop thousands and thousands of times, but you don't want an uncontrolled infinite loop that is never going to stop, or at least is going to barrel through all of your computer's memory. So let me show you an example just so you can see what it looks like. So let's start with I set to what should we do? Let's go 20. And then let's go I'll just recreate what I had there. I greater than or equal to 0, I plus plus, console.log, I. Oh boy, here we go. I actually don't know exactly what my browser's going to do while I'm recording. Here we go though. Start at 20, add 1 each time. We're always greater than or equal to 0. I'm going to refresh. Oh boy. All right, so already things are sort of jumping around. And it seems like it stopped, right? It seems like it stopped at 7,000. But if I try and do something else in here, I'm typing, I'm hitting delete. Look at how laggy this is. I'm holding delete. I mean, it's barely working. And if I try and run some code, like, what is 1 plus 1? I hit enter. It's not working. Nothing is working. So I can't actually do anything in this window. If I go to the actual window it corresponds to, can you see how it's just, oh boy, this is not good. It's not the end of the world, but it is running still, and the console has just decided to stop console.logging things, but that does not mean that the loop is actually done. So don't be deceived and think it only ran 7,259 times. It's still going. So I'm just going to close this window and hope for the best. Now, I don't know if you can hear my computer fan. It is kicked in full blast. Let me try moving this closer. Can you hear that? It's not good. My computer is not happy with me. It's going to be fine. We'll need a little bit more therapy. We need some time away from each other, and we'll come back and, Okay, so I just reopened the file in a new window, and we're good to go. I can start using my console again, and my computer will eventually cool down here. So it's not the end of the world, but it can be very problematic, and they almost always catch you off guard or catch you by surprise. If you're predicting them, I mean, I guess I just did because I'm teaching infinite loops, but if you're predicting that you're going to have an infinite loop, you're almost always, I don't know why you wouldn't, you're just going to fix it ahead of time because it's really a nuisance. So I'm commenting this out and making it very clear that this is an infinite loop. I'll leave it in the code so that you have it. Just, I don't know, if you want to follow along, if you want to just test your browser and turn your computer's fans on for no reason, go ahead. But I'm just going to comment that out. The good news about infinite loops, right, to fix them, generally it's not a lot of work. You usually have just made a logic mistake or you're thinking about things in the wrong direction. So here, if I'm trying to, let's say I wanted to print out numbers from 20 to 0, well, I should have gone down, I minus minus, or maybe I wanted to do something else, like as long as I is less than or equal to some number, not 0, but I need to figure out some way of making this work where it's not going to run forever. And this is only for loops that we've seen so far, but infinite loops are also common when we talk about while loops. We'll see some more examples where things could go wrong. It's just a part of working with loops. So be careful, but don't paralyze yourself in fear. It's really not a huge deal. You just want to avoid it whenever possible, and just pay attention to your code, right? There are some repercussions. If you screw up a variable name or you have a typo, you get a little error in your console. It's not the biggest deal at all. It's pretty quick. If you have an infinite loop, sometimes it can be obnoxious and cause you a minute or two of grief.